called me. Oh, did Francisco hit you up? Oh, okay. Yep.
Hi, baby.
We're all over this. Let's, well, Gio's not here, so.
Vamos rápido, que tengo una emergencia.
Good evening and welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, April 10th. It is currently 7:03 in the evening. Counselors that we have tonight with us is Counselor Vivian Marmol to my right, and also the Vice Chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, and we also have Counselor Wendy Luzon here tonight. Can you guys all please rise and for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wow. I took a 10-minute break from our previous meeting, and now my brain is has not came back yet into meeting mode, so I apologize for that. All right, so pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. A reminder that persons who would like to listen or view this meeting while in progress may either attend here in person at the City Council chambers or may access the meetings through our Facebook or YouTube pages. Councilors, we do not have any minutes to approve, so we're going to go right into the agenda. The first item is item 156-24, FY22 audit of financial statements by Powers and Sullivan. We do have Powers and Sullivan here with us tonight, and we do have our CAFO, Mr. Ionello. Mr. Ionello, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm just here. I'm going to introduce Jim Powers of Powers and Sullivan, the audit firm that does our audit. And there are, he could explain the three reports, but there's three reports in front of you tonight. An audit of the basic financial statements, the schedule of federal awards, which has the expenditures of our grants, and then there's a management letter. So he'll review all three of those reports as he does every year. So here's Jim.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jim Powers from what was Powers and Sullivan. In the last few months, we merged with a national firm, Markham. We still do the same thing and the rest of it, but really not changing what I'm doing tonight, or et cetera, but exciting times for us as we move forward in the auditing world. First off, I'd like to thank Mark and his staff for doing and all the financial people, the schools, for doing a fantastic job on your financials. And in addition to that, the cooperation we get from the city and their staff in getting the audit done is kind of second to none. We really appreciate the good work and the cooperation, even though auditing can be kind of a pain in the neck for people during their day-to-day responsibilities, but it's a necessary evil, and Lawrence and Mark and the team does a great job. As Mark said, there are three different reports that we have. One of them is the report on federal awards, and that one, if I can go over that first.
Yep. However you would like to proceed.
Yeah, and if you'd like to ask me questions as we go, et cetera, you can interrupt me and I'll address them at that point in time. I'm going to summarize what I think is important in each one of these. So the federal government provides assistance to local communities throughout the nation, and they have a requirement that the independent auditor that does these communities audit also extend what's called the single audit and audit the federal programs on their behalf to make sure the city is doing everything in compliance with their rules and regulations and requirements of those particular programs. The requirements say that if you spend over $750,000 of federal funds in any one fiscal year, you're required to have this audit. The city in fiscal year 23 spent $86 million worth of federal funds. And I'm happy to say out of that $86 million, we had no findings. Everything was in compliance. We had to select major grants and audit all those particular compliance requirements. Now, that's a lot of money, but a good part of that is the American Rescue Plan Act funds that the city had received in the last couple of years. And so in last year, they spent about $30 million worth of those particular funds. Going forward, you probably won't have $85 million every year, but you still do have a lot of school grants, which are over $30 million a year, and other grants as you go through. As I said, the actual reports themselves, no findings relative to any of the programs, and so it's a really clean audit as part of that. Is there any questions on that?
Councilors, any questions? As of yet, no.
We're good? Thank you. All right, the bigger report is the City of Lawrence report and examination of the basic financial statements. Now, that's the result of your operations for the year, in effect, the financial activity that occurred during the year. The city has to maintain its books and records in accordance with the Uniform Municipal Accounting System as dictated by the Department of Revenue at the state. All cities and towns must follow those particular rules and the finance rules and regulations in accordance with either their regulations or Massachusetts general laws. And so there's three different bases of accounting, and inside of here, the city was in compliance, full compliance with what we took a look at as part of being in compliance with the Massachusetts regulations and how they maintain the books and records, et cetera. One of the things that we look at as part of the audit is not only what happened historically at the end of fiscal year '23, but we also test the records, the processes, we gain an understanding of the internal controls to make sure that what you see at the end of the year and what the books have during the year, that all of those year-end reconciliations be, say the treasurer's office and the cash and investments maintained, and the actual financial activities that are maintained by the finance department are reconciled. That is like the most important thing that can occur. As part of that testing, we test not only at the end of the year, but during the year. And we found that, similar to previous years, that when you get a report coming out of Mark's office, et cetera, during the year, you can rely on that as being accurate to date for that particular month, whether it's the receivables that you get in, the budget to actual reports as you go through. And so that's an important part of internal controls, and again, the city does a pretty good job of maintaining those records. So if something happens and you had to appropriate something during the year because you had a shortfall, you should know that early on. You won't find out about it in July. You should find out about it in April, May, when that deficit may occur. And it does happen that sometimes you do your best budgeting, but sometimes it's not perfect. Things happen during the year. The financial statements themselves, the budgetary basis financial statements, you'll see that the general fund, which is the primary fund, you have enterprise funds too, has a budgetary fund balance at the end of the year of about $94 million. That's a fantastic balance to have. A good portion of that, and I think Mark said, what, you have $47 million in free cash? $43 million worth of free cash, which is really a healthy free cash number. But a lot of that over the last couple of years has been the way the city has used those American Rescue Plan funds, budgeting for those, and those funds now are available for appropriation through the normal appropriation process as opposed to just being grants as you go through. So an extremely healthy fund balance at that point in time. In the future, you have abilities to probably set some money aside besides just having additional stabilization funds, things like that. You had a lot of projects going on where you were building some things, and debt service reserve funds, stabilization funds, you may want to look at dedicating some of those funds as you go forward. That's not my call. I'm the auditor. I just tell you that I agree with what you're reporting. But you're in a unique position, not that everybody is, as part of that. The enterprise funds, the water and sewer fund, the airport fund, parking fund, all of those are self-supporting, meaning they're not reliant on general fund revenues to balance their budget. Everybody is doing a good job in budgeting that and breaking even each year, or in effect, some of them are having a profit. So again, another good sign relative to that, not only the general fund. The other funds that you see as part of the financial statements are all self-supporting. There could be special revenue funds, where it's recurring revenue every year from probably the state, the federal grants, et cetera, as you go through. And as I said, we found no problems with the accounting for that. And again, they're self-supporting and don't rely on real estate, personal property taxes, et cetera, to balance the budget. And again, those are in good shape. You also have in there capital project funds as part of that, and those are usually funded through federal, state grants and/or bond issues as long-term funding for long-term assets. The biggest thing that everybody in every city and town is dealing with is the pension liability. So right now, you've got a net pension liability of $212 million, and you're about 60% funded. That's above average and that was through 12/31/2022, which is within that particular year. And everybody had a bad year of investments during that year. I haven't looked at it, but I expect that the retirement system probably had a pretty good rate of return this year, Mark? Mm-hmm. All right, and so that 60% funding level should go up when we take a look at the next report as we go forward. But that's a long-term liability to be funded by 2040, and the actuaries and the city's on track to make enough contributions to fully fund that and make sure that
By 2040.
2040 at the latest. I think the city's trying to do it a little bit earlier like everybody else, but the 60% funded at a 7% discount rate is excellent in comparison for other communities your size. The other piece is the OPEB fund, other post-employment benefit funds as you go through that. That's a little bit less funded, let's put it that way. You haven't set aside much money. The discount rate is lower at 4.13, and I won't get into what that does. But you're about $350 million behind on that, but you've only put in $1.5 million. I think you funded $500,000 last year. A lot of communities your size are in the same position as you go through, not really have the funds to do that. It's not a requirement like the pension fund is. There's a Massachusetts law that requires the funding of the pension by 2040. There's no requirement. It's just a pay-as-you-go for the other post-employment benefits. It is basically health insurance for retirees as you go through. That's something as time goes on you may want to take a look at, whether or not you can afford maybe putting a little bit more extra in as you go through. And if you do that and it stays consistent, the actuary can increase the discount rate from 4.13 to probably 7%. And if that happens, your the total liability goes down considerably, because a lot of what you're going to have that's contributing to that is investment earnings. Right now, it's only the city that's funding this particular plan, but and that's why the pension system at 7% is 60% funded, and this one isn't, and so it's something that you may want to consider. Those are the two big liabilities that are out there for every city and town as you go through this. And so that's kind of an overview, I think, of the key components of the financial statements, and if you have any questions on that, I can certainly address them.
Any questions or comments on this? No, wait till the end. They would like to wait till the end.
Okay. Okay, the last report is the management letter. Now, the management letter, which is good, one of the things you don't want to see in a management letter is things called material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. If you did, that puts at risk the assets of the city. And so say if Mark didn't have a system in place that reconciled things monthly and made sure that your cash was reconciled every month accurately, and any mistakes that are made, which happens all the time, corrected timely, then we'd have a material weakness in here because you wouldn't be able to rely on your interim financial statements during the year. That's not the case here. What we have is a few prior comments that are being worked on, and realistically, none of them are, I consider those other matters, not required to be disclosed as part of our audit, but we still do that just to make suggestions on various things. There's some old motor vehicle and personal property taxes that are outstanding. Some of them are marked at the registry, but a lot of them are over, 10 years old. And realistically, you're not going to collect them. You still have them on the books. And basically what we're saying is you should evaluate whether or not you're really going to collect these funds. There's no you're not out there actively trying to collect it yourself. But if somebody does have an old motor vehicle tax still outstanding, and they go to the registry may deny them, and then they're going to have to come over to City Hall and pay that. By you cleaning this up, it's not going to stop them from paying it, and you still getting the money, but it's just kind of messy on the books, looking at things that are this old. They're not significant, but, $1 million worth of real estate and personal property taxes that are old, and $720,000 worth of, $717,000 of motor vehicle, something we want and we think that you should look at as part of that. The other piece too is sometimes, which is the second point on page 2, is this credit, real estate and property balances. So that means somebody overpaid, or there was a misposting and they went to pay, their own real estate tax bill, but it got posted to yours. So you paid yours, and all of a sudden, there's a $5,000 balance that you either owe back to you or it owes back to me. Those things should be evaluated and determined why, because people usually don't overpay their tax bills on purpose. And so what we're saying is that although it's only, $342,000, you should investigate those particular things and either refund that to the taxpayer, if they do that, or make an adjustment to fix the ledgers on that. I know the city's been working on that, and we'll see how it is. And again, remember, these are what was in place at June 30th, 2023. Any progress that the finance team made since then is not reflected in this report. And then water and sewer accounts receivable reconciliations. There was a flaw in the process, and I know in fiscal year '24 that the city and Mark's people have been identifying this through the Munis training and a few other things, and so I would expect come the end of fiscal '24, this one might be substantially resolved at this point in time, and Mark can correct me if I'm wrong with that evaluation, but I know it's being worked on. Abandoned property taxes and tailings. And so that point from last year was resolved. So if you want me to talk about it, I can, but it's all fixed. And then the last piece is capital asset accounting. There's a lot of policies that are needed for the financial statements. They're not necessarily needed for the Massachusetts UMass financial reporting model, but to be in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles, that has to be done, audited, and maintained. So it would be okay, you're going through new construction right now to build a school, to build another building. You have to account for that long-term asset to be measured against, say, the long-term liability that you issued bonds for in order to pay for that. and it's just a different basis of accounting. What we're saying is that you should be developing like written policies and procedures of what's expected, when it gets done, and how to account for this. Everything's accounted for. We were able to audit that, and the balances on the financial statements are accurate. But it's a little wonky.
But it was smooth.
Yeah, there's a better way to do what they, especially with the software that's out there right now that can help on a lot of these things. And so we're just suggesting that that would be something that we think would make the year-end close go a little bit smoother, audit a little smoother as we go forward with this. So that kind of gives you a summary of the findings that we had from last year. And I guess now would be time for questions, since I think I'm at the end.
Councilor Marmol.
So through you, Council President, I'll apologize if I'm going to ask basic questions, and this is for me to get a gauge as to how the audit was conducted. So when this audit was initially done, do you mind giving us an approximate date as to when your company came into the city to start this audit? And once you did, because I'm looking at this letter, and I'm able to see, based on your findings, what was recommended and then the current status. So it leads me to believe that you guys came back at a later point in time to see if it was rectified? Am I correct by thinking that?
No, it was corrected, so if the one that was corrected that said it was corrected by, during the year, that would have been done. So we come in the spring to start preliminary work. The retirement system, which is part of the financial statements here, we have a contract with the retirement system separate and apart from the city, but that begins that, because they have a 12/31 year end. And so we'll come in the spring. Remember the $85 million worth of federal grants? We'll probably do, before June 30th, 85% of the testing related to that, based on what's occurred during the year. We also do, during that period of time, we start auditing, say, long-term debt. We will do transaction testing. We'll test your internal controls. We'll see whether or not anything else changed. So we spend probably 40% of our time before June 30th prepping for year end, okay? And then we work out timing with the city to say, okay, when do you think your books and records are going to be closed, and what makes sense for a date in the fall to the winter when it makes sense to come out? Some things we have to wait for. As part of this financial statement, you also have, remember we talked about the other post-employment benefits liability? Well, you're also relying on the actuary, because the actuary has to complete their reporting before it makes it into these particular financial statements. Sometimes it's done early, sometimes it's done later. And so probably by 12/31, we have 90% of the financial statements completed. Goes to Mark and his people, they make sure that they're in agreement with all the numbers, et cetera. We send things out. And then over the next couple of months, it usually gets down to finishing up that single audit report, the federal grants. There's a requirement that it has to be done by the end of March. If not, you go to a different level of risk as you go through that. And so we're probably still requesting some information at that point in time. And then it becomes just back and forth of what's open. Oh, we have 15 open items, and you start working on it one at a time. Mark assigns that to his staff, and we work with them, so my staff and Mark's staff will go through and finalize all the little things that still have to be completed. So it's almost an all year round piece. One of the things that's part of the contract is that anything that the city needs for questions as the year goes on, et cetera, Mark and I have various conversations throughout the year on an issue that may come up. That's just part of the contract. So we like to see ourselves as year-round support for the city. We are independent, but the primary responsibility is to make sure that financial statements are accurate. So I'd rather have Mark call me. We had a lot of discussions about ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, where he would call me up and we'd have a long discussion. Is this allowable? Can I do this? That type of thing. And I said, yes, based on the rules, because they were all new as we went through that. And so we spent a lot of time on going through that, but that's just part of the support that comes along with the audit. And if he had done it wrong, it'd be in the management letter. Fortunately, he didn't. But it helps for the fact that he'll ask the question to make sure that we're in agreement, and so we can do a pre-audit on some of the things, the big things, the bond issues that are going out, et cetera. We're going out for this particular thing. How should we account for it when we go through? And if you do make a decision to set up another one of those stabilization funds, I know we'll have a conversation about that as we go through. Will you need anything special from an audit standpoint? What will you need as you go through? And so there's constant communications back and forth between us and the city to make sure things go smoothly.
Based on your recommendations, is the city held to some sort of timeline or deadline that they would have to rectify?
No, I mean,
Make
I
any,
think,
make any adjustments?
we'd always like to get it done a little bit sooner. I'd have to go back and let you know if there was anything that was a significant delay. I can't remember off the top of my head when the actuary report came out, so I apologize for that. But, no, we can work out a schedule, and I have no problem coming back to the committee at the beginning of the audit, if you want me to, and we'll lay out, okay, here's the plan for the year. We're coming in now to do this. Then we're scheduled on November 4th to come back to do this. Whatever it is, and here's what's laid out, and what we can put in that presentation to you would be, these are the things that need to be done on the city's part. If they meet those particular deadlines, then it's up to us. Now, we have to make sure that we have enough staff set up and to do and audit those particular things as the city goes through and finishes their closing. So I have no problem doing something like that if you're interested in that. And that would only probably take less than a half an hour to walk through the entire audit with you, but I think it may be a good thing to do. It doesn't cost you any more money. I'll come up here and I don't like Zoom that much. I'd rather do it in person, so,
Mr. Iannello, please take note of that for the next audit.
yeah. So, does that answer your question, hon?
Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Councilor Luzon.
No, thank you, Madam Chair, I have no question.
I think you would, okay. I have, for Mr. Iannello, what improvements have we done so far? Overall, what I'm hearing is that we're in good standing, overall. What
Yeah.
I'm hearing is that we have minor things to work on, but it's not significant that the city is gonna get into trouble with the state or anything like that.
If it was, I would have had that at a material weakness or a significant deficiency. There's no option for me to not report that to the governing, the Board
Right.
of Governances, and that's who you are. So I, even though I like them, I don't report to mine.
Right. As Jim mentioned, we usually do, our audit plan is done usually late spring. They come here usually in April or May for 2 weeks, and then they're back again, usually in September. We have our books closed late August, so usually September, certainly by the beginning, usually September, they come back for another 2 weeks to get a lot of the audit work done, because our books are closed. And then there's, what many people don't realize is that 90% of their audit is done from their offices, because they have direct access to our Munis system. They have view-only access, so they can look up all transactions and so forth right online. But anyway, as Jim was explaining in management letter, we had a lot of comments over the years. We've been cleaning them up one at a time. This year, the water receivables was on there for the last few years. And so we just met just a month or two ago to try and figure out, sat down with the water and the treasurer, and we realized there's a timing issue as to why these reconciliations are taking so long. There's certain transactions are being done that, and they're not accounting for the timing of those transactions. So we just had a training session, or they had a training session with the Munis, and so I expect the water and sewer receivables will be resolved this year. We won't have an issue next year. The old receivables, motor vehicles and personal property, I know the treasurers, the collector treasurer is working with the assessors, see if we can write some of that stuff off. We do need the assessors to abate it. We have plenty of room in our overlay account to do so. The tailings has been resolved, as his audit report said. And the last one is just the capital asset accounting. We just need to get some software, and I'm sure Jim could recommend some software that other municipalities use, and see if I can assign it to somebody to make that last comment go away, because it is just now that we're building 3 new buildings, this is a time to probably do it. We do keep track of all our capital assets. That's one of the things Jim's firm asked for, what are our capital expenditures this year. So we have a way of extracting it from our books and records, but the maintenance of all the details are on a spreadsheet, and there's software that can make that go a little more smoothly.
Okay. Thank you. Now I can't seem to find it, but I had one sentence underlined that I wanted to ask you about. It was pertaining the opportunities to grow or improve. I'm sure you already covered it, but I wanted to ask that again. And now I can't find it now.
There's a lot of pages in those reports.
Yeah, so I'll make sure to have that question for the full council meeting. Is there-
jotting notes on different pages.
Yeah, are there any other questions? I'm sure we'll have a lot more next week. Okay, at this point, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to move this forward to the full council with a favorable recommendation
Committee report.
as a committee report.
Motion has been made by Vice Chair Marmo. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Councilor Luzon. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye, and the ayes have it. Thank you so much. So we'll see you next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on with the agenda, we have item 157-24, the appropriation transfer in the amount of $170,000 from salaries, account number account number 010411-5110 to litigation, which is the account 010411-5305. Attorney Huen, you have the floor.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you very much. As you can see, what we're having here is we're allotting for the end of the year. One of the things that Councilor Infante will know, but the other councils will not know, is that last year, when I appeared before the council, I promised that we would cut down on outside counsel fees. I'm happy to report that since obtaining the new attorney in January, we have not referred any cases outside. So these are all old bills. There is nothing new that's been added. So it's not just legal fees that are included in here. We have court stenographers, we have arbiters fees, we have court fees, so there's a lot of fees that we have to pay. But we anticipate that the transfer of $170,000 will cover all litigation and all fees to the end of the year.
Okay. Awesome. Councilors, any comments or questions? Okay, at this point, I will entertain a motion.
As a committee report?
No, this is good for you. As a favorable.
All right, I make a motion to submit this item to full council with a favorable recommendation.
Motion's been made by the Vice Chair. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Councilor Luzon. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye, and the ayes have it.
Thank you very much, councilors.
I am going to I was asked to leave 158 to the end, so Going to 159-24, the extension of contracts beyond 3 years for contract number 7055, LHS Associates, and we have Clerk Burnell. Clerk Burnell?
Hi, it's Eileen Burnell. I'm the city clerk, 257 Mount Vernon Street. Just to clarify, because it's already been asked this question like 3 times, LHS Associates is in no way affiliated with Lawrence High School. That is just the name of the printing company that we use. That vendor prints the ballots and prints the censuses. They help us maintain our voter lists. They also do like prepaid postage on the envelopes that we mail out. And they also maintain the voting machines and the poll pads, so that if we have an issue on election day, we're not saying, someone saying, oh, there's an error on the ballot, and then someone says, oh, no, it's the machine. We don't have 2 vendors fighting with each other. We use one vendor to do both of those things. And it is something that we go out to bid for. So right now, we have a 3-year contract with that vendor. The contract number is at 7055, and the contract amount was for $118,484 in total. There's
Can
still
you
a...
repeat that?
Yeah, of course, it's $118,484. That was for a 3-year contract. We still have a balance on that contract of $64,000, and we have about $40,000 worth of bills with that vendor. So everything lines up exactly how you would expect it to, except for the contract has expired. So we're just, because it was a 3-year contract, we cannot extend it. Normally, you can extend your contract for a year. We can't extend it because we already have 3 years. So we're asked without council approval. So we're getting council approval, please, to extend it so that we can access the money that's in the contract, pay those bills. We just actually worked with Genelvi, the city purchaser, to put out the new RFP to rebid that. And they, again, were the high bidder or the best bidder, or the low bidder, I guess makes them the best one. We're going to be working with them again for 3 more years. We like that vendor very much. But the contract itself is a solid contract. There's funds in the contract still. The only real issue is it's expired before the new one starts, and we have money in it we'd like to use to access, so that we can pay some bills.
When does the new contract start?
The new contract has not set up yet. They literally had the bid this morning. We anticipate it will be around May 1, so we're asking to extend this contract through May 1, so that there'll be no gap in coverage, you know what I mean?
And then the rebating, the available funds of $64,397.50 will be sustainable for your office up until March. May
Exactly, we
1st,
can
if
use it to
approved.
pay their existing bills till May 1, yep.
Okay. Okay. Counselors, any questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion to submit this to full council, extending the contract beyond the 3 years in a favorable recommendation.
Motion has been made by the vice chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Luzon. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 161-24, the review and approval of the annual application to HUD for a community development block grant, which is a CDBG grant, in the estimated amount of $1,551,622, and for the home grants in the estimated amount of $944,775. And we have our financial manager, Sue Fink. It's been a long day.
Totally understand it. Good evening, councilors. Sue Fink, Manager of Financial and Administrative Services for the Community Development Department, and I reside at 6 Rockwood Lane here in Lawrence. So our fiscal year 2025, which starts on July 1st, is funded with the federal fiscal year 2024 CDBG and home grants. The federal fiscal year is a little bit different than ours. It runs from October through September. Unfortunately, due to delays in approving the budget in Congress, HUD has not announced the actual allocations yet. That's why we have estimated funding. So as the chair indicated, we're estimating to receive $1,551,622 for CDBG, which is the same as we received for FY24. And we're also estimating to receive $944,075 for a home, which is, again, the same as FY '24. So what I'm going to ask at the end of our vote is that you approve the budget plus or minus 10% to allow for an adjustment for when the actual allocations come out. Hopefully, we will have those before you order the public hearing. So the CDBG budget, which you have received, has allocated $400,000 for park improvements, $300,000 for infrastructure improvements, $267,821 for homeowner rehabilitation, $10,000 as a match to Emmaus to house formerly homeless individuals here in Lawrence, $263,477 for the payment due to HUD on the Gateway Section 108 loan. And I'm happy to say that the final payment is going to be due in August of 2025, so we're almost at the end of that loan. And we also have $310,324 for administrative costs. There is a statutory cap of 20% of the CDBG grant that can be spent on administrative costs.
And that's the max cap?
That is the maximum we can spend, yes. Now, the home budget, which you received, has $141,611 for a certified community housing development organization, also known as a CHODO. And again, this is a statutory requirement to set aside 15% of our home grant for a CHODO, so they can use it to construct affordable housing units. We've set aside $723,056 for housing development projects and $94,408 for administrative costs. The statutory cap on the home grant for administrative costs is 10%. So the home regulations also require us to take any program income that we have received during the current fiscal year, so any loans that have been paid off, and budget that for the following fiscal year. So I'm estimating we'll receive about $15,000 in program income this year. So as I suggested, I'm requesting that you approve the budget plus or minus 10%, authorize the expenditure of these grant funds, and send this to the full council to order a public hearing to be held on May 7th. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Counselor Marmol?
Through you, Madam Chair. I'm intrigued, if you don't mind, or if you have the ability to provide additional details regarding the projects. So like the park improvements, do you guys already have set in place into what parks would be benefiting from the allocation of the $400,000? In addition to like the infrastructure improvements, what infrastructures are we speaking of? Do you mind touching base on like the homeless housing assistance match? What does that mean? And the homeowner rehab, kind of like if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. So on the park projects, we are planning to do some improvements to Oxford Park, which is on Canal Street when you come in off of Marston Street. It's been neglected for many years, so we're hoping to do some improvements up there to really activate that park. Another potential project is the Bennington Triangle, which is at the intersection of Bennington and Saratoga and Lawrence Street. The mayor has asked us to consider applying to the state for a park grant to work on that, and that requires some city funds to go along with that, so we'd like to have a little bit of a reserve just in case we are lucky enough to be awarded for that project. As far as infrastructure, we don't have anything specifically set in mind for that, but we just want to have a pot of funds available for that. Homeowner rehabilitation, oh, sure.
In regards to the infrastructure improvements, is this specifically for businesses in downtown? Is it specifically targeting certain infrastructures?
So infrastructure could be, it could be additional park work, it could be sidewalks, it could be additional street work, anything like that.
Okay.
The physical infrastructure of the city.
Okay.
Homeowner rehabilitation is available for any homeowner who makes 80% or less of the area median income guidelines set by HUD. We can go in and correct any code violations. We generally do that in conjunction with our lead abatement grant, so we would take care of any lead paint that might be present in the house. We can assist any project that has 1 to 4 units using these funds. The homeless assistance money to Emmaus. So Emmaus receives several $100,000 of continuum of care funding through the state from the federal government, and they are required to have matching funds. And because they are dedicated to serving Lawrence residents, we do provide a minimum of amount of match to them of $10,000. Not really all that much in the grand scheme of our budget. And the Gateway Section 108 loan payment, back, I believe it's in 2004 or 5, the city borrowed $2.9 million from the federal government to construct the parking lot at the Gateway up on Canal Street. It was a formerly contaminated site, which we now have a surface parking lot. And the terms of that is if the agency that we have lent this money to does not make the payments, we are guaranteeing that money with our CDBG grant, and we have been paying that consistently. We make 2 payments a year, and as I said, our final payment will be made in August of 2025.
So any further questions or comments? Okay, at this point, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to submit this item to full council with a favorable recommendation.
Plus, with the plus or minus.
To say that, yeah.
And to order a public hearing, if I may. And to order a public hearing.
And to order a public hearing.
May 7th.
For May 7th?
Yeah, that's what she said.
Okay. Let me see if I can reword this. I make a motion to submit this item with a favorable recommendation, with the plus or minus of 10% for a public hearing on May 7th. Did I state that correctly? Am I
Good
missing
enough.
something?
Very good. Was there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Motion made by the Vice Chair Marmol, seconded by Councilor Luzon. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, and the ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors.
No, it's good. It's fine, all right.
No, it means a full meeting.
No, she added it. She added.
To order a,
Okay, so the next item is item 162-24, the transfer of funds in the amount of, okay, Ms. Commissioner Hale, you have a really large, give me a second here, in the amount of $1,874,639.49 from the retained earnings to debt service and GLSD accounts. Commissioner William Hare from the Water and Sewer Department.
Good evening, councilors. From William Hale, Water and Sewer Commissioner, 7 Agnes Terrace, Methuen, Mass. So tonight, I'm asking for approval of the transfer of the $1.8 million, as you can see, and I have a handout for you to clarify what it's exactly for.
So here we have, out of that, to transfer $467,262.80 for a municipal bond that is closing in June of 2023.
Yes, so...
But we still need to pay.
Yep, so last year, we had the money in the budget, but due to the timing of the loan closing, it closed midway through June, so the money essentially got rolled over into retained earnings because we didn't use it in time. So basically, I'm asking to take that money back out of retained earnings because the payment's going to be due June 1st of this year. So the payment amount was $563,525.02, and remaining in our account right now, we have $96,262.22. So the balance is that 467,000.
Okay. And then the majority of this, what is GLSD? And I should know this.
So it's Greater Lawrence Sanitary District.
I
So
know I should know that.
what happened last year was, as you may know, so for many years, we were borrowing from our retained earnings to balance our budget. So we weren't doing that this year, so with the rate increases, the way they were gonna hit, because it was every 6 months, we underfunded it by roughly $1 million. What we would normally pay with anticipation is once we get the retained earnings certified, then we would come to the council, as we are now, to reappropriate the money to that account. So we have the money in retained earnings. Right now, we have 3.1 million in retained earnings. So we will be taking the appropriation of the 1.874 million. That will leave us with 1.253 million in the account.
Okay. Councilors, any questions or comments? Seeing none, at this point, I will entertain a motion.
Oh, I see the legal being. Would they come to report manager?
I make a motion to submit this item to full council with a favorable recommendation.
Motion has been made by the vice chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Luzon. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And the ayes have it. Thank you so much,
Councilors. And I
Commissioner.
just have a quick side note. So next week, I don't know if you're going to go to council on Tuesday of next week. So I'm going to be on vacation, but I do have the water and sewer supervisor. He's the next in charge, that he can go through all this.
Okay.
But if needed, it can be pushed out. That's up to you, but
Okay.
I think
As long
he
as
can
he-
handle it, so.
As long as, yeah, if you have a representative there, I think we should be fine.
Okay, all right,
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay, can you get, Maria, can you get Bill for me, please? One of the items, I need him for. Yep. The next one is item from new business. The last new business is item 158-24, appropriation transfer in the amount of $29,275 from retained revenue fund 3590 to the airport repair and maintenance account. And this was brought to us by the airport manager, but he is currently stuck in a commission meeting, and we do have an airport board member here that can talk about this.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Bill Collins, One Platte Court, member of the Lawrence Airport Commission. Like you said, the manager would have been here. He's at a conservation meeting in North Andover for airport business. So as a member of the commission, discussing item 158, $29,275, that'll be coming from our retained revenue fund. And that has to do with a fence that was taken down by a drunk driver on the street where the Mexican restaurant is, where Great Pond Road, where the light is, that dead-end street. So we took out a large portion of our airport fence. It's critical we keep that fenced off. We've been renting a fence by the month. Hopefully, when this is approved and transferred, we'll put the permanent fence in, and it'll save us from renting that fence. And apparently, he was underinsured, so we're having trouble collecting from his insurance policy. There is another item that's part of that 29,000, some cameras we bought during the COVID era. There was, as you know, a lot of supply chain problems, so some of the parts of the camera never came in. When they did come, they didn't seem to work right, so we have a problem with some of our large overall airport cameras, and we're gonna have to, the warranty is expired, so we have to go and fix it, and that's gonna be what part of this amount is for.
Okay. Councilors, any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I submit this item 15824 in the form of a motion with a favorable recommendation to submit to full council the appropriation transfer of $29,275 from retained revenue fund 3590 to airport repair and maintenance account number 264 610-5241.
Motion has been made by the vice chair. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Counselor Luzon. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, councilors. The manager will be here Tuesday if you'd like to talk to him. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. At this point, could I have a motion to untable item 76-24, the resolution amending and rescinding the reimbursement requirement for the Creating a Thriving Lawrence Grant awardees?
So move.
Motion has been made by Council Marmo. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Councilor Luzon. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And the ayes have it. Advisor Spanner. And, oh, yes, that's right. Acting Director Matos. Counselor, so one of the questions that we did have was pertaining to the conflict of interest, and I don't know if this was included, but I did ask for it to be included in our packet. I'm not seeing it here. But we all received an email from the Senior Advisor Spanner with records of his documentation submission to the city clerk, and she did verify to us via email that she received it and, legit, and that he is okay in the eyes of the Massachusetts Ethics Commission. So we did receive that, and that was all cleared, and it was sent to all the counselors, so thank you so much for that information.
So we're seeking that this be, as the request is, that we get this favorably recommended up to the full council so that we can assist the businesses and the folks that are looking for rental assistance as well.
So we have an issue.
We have provided the documentation also regarding the organizations that were looking or having issues with regards to reimbursement model that was originally proposed, and that's why the ordinance is the request is before you today.
Okay, that's not why I'm sighing, though. I'm sighing because we will lose quorum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out of committee at the full council level as old business, and we will take this matter up at the full council next Tuesday.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Can I have a motion to retable item 76-24? You can vote to retable it, yes. Yep, it's only discussion and.
Motion to retable?
Motion has been made by Councilor Luzon. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Marmo. All those in favor say aye. Aye, and the ayes have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. At this point, is there?
Would you explain, Madam Chair, would you explain to members of Federation what just happened?
Oh, okay, yes. So what happened was, I was just asked to explain to members of the Hispanic Federation. Councilor Luzon cannot vote on this item, so she has to excuse herself. So because there's only 3 of us tonight, we will lose quorum, we will lose the voting power. So what we can do is that, as the chair, I can bring this item without that vote to the full council, and I believe we need a 6-member vote in order to take it out of committee to discuss at the full council, and then we'll have the enough votes to make a final vote and either approve or deny, whichever comes. But this will be formally, officially discussed next Tuesday at the full council meeting with a vote at the end.
So we can't even ask questions now? We can't?
No, no. All right, at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Council Marvel, properly second. All those in favor say aye. And the ayes have it. Thank you so much.